We have here today Dr. Jerry Fuqua from the Octalysis Group, and we're going to talk about gamification. So, Jerry, what is your story?
Good afternoon, Michelle. I started off in gamification recently, and that's about 3 or 4 years ago. But going further back, I'll go back to where my education was. I did my undergraduate work at UCLA. I was an honors chemistry student, but majored in physics and mathematics. That exposed me to some Nobel Prize winners and kind of gave me a big head for a while. I went on to get my master's degree in physics at UCLA, and then I worked for a couple of companies for a couple of years, mainly some rather boring applied science companies, and decided that I wanted to get out into the academic world and essentially pursue an advanced degree in something very applicable in the physical sciences. So I went to the University of Hawaii and ended up in physical oceanography, where I got my doctorate. And I focused in, unfortunately, back into the theoretical side. I ended up doing numerical modeling and computer simulations in turbulence, which is a very, very challenging area. After that, I did some postdoc work, but essentially went to work for the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and did some computer work there. And then ended up getting into the Defense Department at the Naval Ocean Systems Center, both in Hawaii and in San Diego, California, where I was drawn into artificial intelligence, robotics, and a little dolphin work, too. I decided then to pursue a business degree, and I can get my MBA at the University of Hawaii, and I was going to work for Sony or one of the big international companies. And about that time, the internet was beginning to become more visible in terms of the World Wide Web, and I was drawn into a startup. Actually, I was a co-founder at a startup, Internet Information Technologies, and that evolved into a company called Surgery.com, and where we essentially developed the first human resource database system and querying system. And our customers were plastic and cosmetic surgeons, and that was the most applicable of all the medical professions. And we did quite well for a number of years. Were acquired in 2003. And also, a little bit later in time, two of the founders and I started another company called WorldPoint Interactive, and that was more focused on localization, essentially being able to rebrand, redesign websites for local communities in other languages. And then I was drawn into the Valley to help out with a company called Daily Wellness in Mountain View, and pursued some similar advising, counseling interests in that vein before I got into gamification. And I was, I guess, one of the early members of the Octalysis Group, which was founded by Yukai Chao, and who's world-renowned gamification guru, and Joris Beerda, another gamification expert based in Switzerland. So that's how I got involved with gamification.
Thank you, Jerry. Sounds very interesting. I am excited about this topic because I used to work for and at eBay. And we all know that gamification is very important, because without it, things in the internet can be very boring. First, let's talk about gamification. What is gamification?
Well, gamification is the use, the application of game design principles, game elements to a situation that is non-game context. So essentially, gamifying making something more interesting or more attractive to users based on gaming principles.
I have a more significant question, and the question is, should companies or designers or founders care about gamification before they design a product, or should they think about it after they design a product? Should they think about gamification when they're wireframing, or should they think about gamification and just afterward and just put in some leadership boards and call that gamification?
Okay, so you're actually asking about should the company be proactive versus reactive.
Correct.
Most times companies are reactive. They create a design, provide a service or a product, and it doesn't go so well, so then they try to pivot and they analyze what their situation is, and that's where they usually begin to look at gamification. Some companies start right off and they want to have a gamified product right from the beginning. I probably should introduce the idea that Yukai Chow has promoted as a fundamental view of gamification, and that is most products or services are designed as function focused, meaning you want it to be fast, you want it to be powerful or cheap to develop, and they tend to ignore the human factor. So what gamification actually does, especially Octalysis, and we'll get into that later, is that it focuses on the human side. So we call that human-focused design. And that makes whatever your company does more powerful. It makes it more attractive and more engaging for people.
So, Dr. Jerry Fuqua, I am a big fan of gamification. Not knowing it's called gamification, because I remember during the early Facebook's days when we have a lot of poking. Do you remember people sending you shoes and food, and just super poke and mega poke you? And then I think we call those widgets during those times. And on eBay, of course, we have that kind of feedback system. Of course, we believe that at eBay, we believe that humans are basically good. And so we developed something called trust. How are those? How do those features or factors play an important role in gamification? I mean, I assume that if you just have a website, it could be entirely blank, and you just want people just to do certain things, right?
Well, the challenge there is not to throw gaming elements, game components into a design and just think that it will work. You actually have to put some thought into it. Essentially, the process is to design your service or design your product with human consideration, human factors, because typically most game designs use the same elements in one form or another, but 9 out of 10 designs are failures. They don't make enough money to survive, and they aren't intriguing. They don't have the sticky factor in keeping the players interested, and so that represents a rather poor or weak design in game design. The same thing is true about non-games. If you just throw leaderboards and trophies and badges into a game and say, hey, we're gamifying it into the product or the service, and we're gamifying it, there's very little likelihood that it will survive and be profitable. That's why you have to actually take a more in-depth fundamental approach in designing your product or your service.
That's awesome. So today we're going to really dive deep into gamification. I wanted to talk about these 8 factors. They call it the core drives in the Octalysis group framework. I will basically call out a core drive, and Jerry here will explain to us what it means. So let's begin with that, because then, just to keep it interactive, I think it will be a lot of fun. Core drive 1, epic meaning and calling. What does that mean, Jerry?
That means that you are interested and participating and being engaged because of a greater meaning. It's not any for personal reasons more than for a greater call, for community or team or family. That's why it's often called epic core, epic meaning and calling, because you're doing something, you're becoming involved for a greater good, for the greater cause.
So is participating and being social on Facebook, is that an epic meaning?
No, that. I would give an example of, like, if you're on a team, if you're on a basketball team, that's a physical game, but the reason you are on the you're involved is because it's a team effort. It's a greater effort.
Ah, I got it. So basically working together is epic.
Yes, so Core Drive 1 is very important for collaboration and cooperation.
Okay, cool. And then for nonprofits, it's usually curing cancer, community.
The greater cause.
The greater cause. Okay, and then let's go to Core Drive 2. Core Drive 2 is accomplishment and development. What is accomplishment and development?
Well, that's because you want to improve your skills, you improve your status, you improve your ability. So, yeah, the accomplishment means you want to improve to a level where you've accomplished something. So it's the desire to be better.
So if I play a game for like 8 hours just to go to the next level, that would be a development, right? Because I'm improving myself and my skill set.
Yes. Typically, this is where you see the feedback factors or the rewards, like the badges or the leaderboards, so you can actually see what you're doing is actually improving your status. You're becoming more accomplished because you have a badge or you have a higher level in the game.
Okay, so basically on Facebook, I have like 300 something friends, and so I've accomplished something in life. We're allowed to be humorous here.
Only 300?
I'm not famous. Okay, but I'm working on it. I'm developing myself so that there is some sense of accomplishment. Okay, let's go to Core Drive 3. Empowerment of creativity and feedback.
Yes, that's where you're actually using the creative side of the mind to obtain something unique, something that you create, and you receive joy or a high out of it. This is one that's actually very hard to obtain sometimes because the conditions are not right for a creative situation. But it's one of the most rewarding responses. It's something that gives you great pride or a good feeling.
Remember that one time when I made that YouTube video and I had to share it with all my friends because I was so proud that I spent all Saturday afternoon working on it and editing the video and posting it? Is that an example of creativity and empowerment?
That's a factor. When you're creating something like that, that is definitely Core Drive 3. But there's also Core Drive 5, which is coming up, and that's also a factor in that situation.
Alrighty, I'll be patient. Okay, let's go to Core Drive 4, ownership and possession.
That means that you have something that you want to improve on and protect, or you want to increase. It's like money. You want to be able to accumulate and organize and capitalize on it. So that's the ownership and possession factor.
I have a question. Does my shoe connection work under Core Drive 4? Like, I'm proud of that. I own a lot of shoes.
Yes, I would say that's a perfect example of ownership and possession. Are you trying to get to the level of Emilia Marcos?
Well, I mean, I think those little stars help a lot. But then shoes, I can decide and wake up every day deciding which pair of shoes I would like to wear. So today I have a pair of pink shoes.
But you know something? If you don't wear all your shoes, you still have a pride. You still feel good about owning all these shoes, even if you don't wear them.
But I bet there's a law of use that I feel like I violate if I don't wear them. Okay, let's go to Core Drive 5. Social influence and relatedness.
So it's the element that involves people, and you're affected. You're relating to people and the social elements, and so everything that factors into you relating to other people is part of the social influence and relatedness of Core Drive 5. Now let me go back on your original example where you were creating a video, and that does tap into Core Drive 3, but the sharing of the video is where you're tapping into Core Drive 5 because you want to share it with the community and with friends or other people that you're related to.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I did 2 birds in 1 stone by making a video and sharing it.
Yeah. Well, the important thing to remember is that whatever you're doing, it doesn't necessarily limit it to one core drive. There actually might be 1, 2, or 3, or even more core drives that would make something effective.
I feel like talking to you, Jerry, is part of this Core Drive 5. So I appreciate you being here and speaking with us on gamification. And that is Core Drive 5, everybody. All right, let's go to Core Drive 6, scarcity and impatience.
Well, that tends to be the drive that supports the desire to have something that seems like it's really, really scarce. It's not obtainable, or you have to put a lot of effort into obtaining it. It can also apply to time. If time is running out, that's where the impatience factor comes in. It forces you to react or act on something because you're losing time or you're losing something.
So yesterday, before midnight, at 11:45 p.m., I had 15 minutes to buy something before midnight, and I was just counting down. Is that an example of scarcity?
Yes, that's a very good example.
Not sure why, when we shop during the holidays when we're supposed to be joyful, companies put these scarcity elements so that we can spend more money and do it in a time. Why can't we do it today? Okay, let's go to Core Drive 8, loss and avoidance.
No, I think you skipped Core Drive 7.
Oh my gosh, I skipped Core Drive 7 because I'm being unpredictable. Aren't you curious? Okay, so Core Drive 7 is unpredictability and curiosity.
Yeah, actually, that's one of my favorite core drives because it's what gamblers are driven by. When you go to Las Vegas, it's so unpredictable and the curiosity. But a couple of good examples here is like I often view core drive 7 as motivating for golf because every time you hit a shot and it goes awry, it presents new problems. So it's unpredictable. And sometimes you can hit a shot down the fairway and you say, oh, I love this game. And then the next shot goes off into a bunker and you said, oh, I hate this game. So it's very unpredictable. But another good example of unpredictability and curiosity is think about the Game of Thrones. The way they leave the season finale with a cliffhanger. And then people are just dying to wait to see the next season and see what happens. And they do this between episodes. They actually have a very good application of Core Drive 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think the price of Bitcoin is not that unpredictable since it seems like it's gone up all the time now. But in terms of protests and nation, that is unpredictable because every day there's a different protest. Okay, let's go to Core Drive 8, loss and avoidance.
That's just the fear of losing something, and you want to avoid loss, and so that's the driving force. And it's a very, very powerful core drive for short-term situations, and we'll discuss that.
So I guess for loss and avoidance, I'm just really thinking about certain things that are more serious that I shall not say. But let's just talk about something lighter, like playing games where GIFs or digital goods disappear. Is that an example of avoidance, Jerry?
Yes, actually, a very good example is with Farmville, or was a good example. Farmville is not as popular as it was 3 or 4 years ago. But the fact is that they take advantage of Core Drive 8 because if you may recall, you obtain some land and you grow some crops, and that's like accumulation and ownership, Core Drive 4. But the other problem is that you have to keep going back and taking care of your crops. You have to keep
Mining.
yeah, you have to. Well, you have
Watering
to.
the plants.
Yeah, you have to harvest them because if you don't water them, they die, and you return the next day, and it's gone, and that's sad. So that's a negative. Well, we'll talk about this. A regular negative event, which is what we call the black hat event. But also the fact is that if you have livestock, you have to maintain them, or else they lose weight and they die too.
So I have a nephew, and during the time that farmer was very popular, he kept saying that he needs to water his plants or his fish for another game, and I just don't understand whether he's talking about reality or his game life. And it seems like he was talking about his game life, and I think he was worried about that is Core Drive 8, and also shopping. I think when I mentioned shopping, of course, you want to take advantage of those sales, which makes in an interplay with Core Drive 6 scarcity. So I think Jerry mentioned black hats and white hats. And I'm really interested in this because, there are just certain things that motivate us, like doing it for the greater good. And then there's other things that motivate us, like we'll get in trouble if we don't. So what are those white hats and black hats?
So the bottom three core drives, Core Drive 6, 7, and 8, are known as the black hat core drives because they all motivate you, but with kind of negative energy. Essentially, you're going to lose something if you don't do it, or you don't have something that's very rare, and if you don't do something, there's no chance of getting it. And sometimes it's unpredictable and it can get scary. So those are known as black hat core drives. They're the bottom of the octagon in the Octalysis framework. The top three, Core Drive 1, Epic Meaning and Calling, Core Drive 2, Development and Accomplishment, and Core Drive 3, Empowerment of Creativity and Feedback, are known as the white hat core drives because they motivate in a positive way, because when you actually execute something based on those core drives, you feel good. It's fun, or you feel happy, or you feel just plain positive that you're doing good. So those are the core drives. Now, the interesting thing is that for motivation, in terms of chronicle motivation, time-based motivation, the white hat core drives, they are really good for producing long-term engagement because it's just a pleasant feeling to do something. You get a positive feedback. But it might be a situation where you want to respond, but you want to brush your teeth first, or you want to take a nap before you do it. It's not highly motivating in terms of urgency. Whereas the black hat core drives are very, very powerful in generating urgent responses and not so good in maintaining. So that's why in Farmville, Farmville took advantage of black hat motivation, black hat core drives, and got people hooked right away. But after a while, it started to wear upon people, and so that when there was another option to switch to a different game or whatever, they would leave. So it was very difficult for Zynga to maintain their users on Farmville for more than a few months.
So let me ask you, and I just want to really get back to that point. So it seems like Core Drive 6, Scarcity, 8, Lost and Avoidance, and 7, Unpredictability, basically gives people a sense of urgency. But it sounds like Core Drive, the more white hat Core Drives, are more lasting.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at the 4 phases of game development, basically the first phase is discovery, learning, finding out about a game or product. The second phase is onboarding, where you actually commit to start playing the game or learning about it. The third phase is scaffolding, where you actually develop the skills to play the game correctly or to advance or to become more familiar with the product and use it effectively. And then the fourth phase is the end game, where you're essentially an expert, and there's not much left to develop, but you can end up mentoring or helping other people come along. So in the first phase, the discovery phase, one of the most powerful sets of core drives are the Black Hat core drives, because they get you to just, like jump in and try it out, just try to learn it. But those core drives don't keep you involved. That's where the White Hat core drives come in, because the White Hat core drives are not as powerful for the discovery phase, but definitely more powerful for the onboarding, scaffolding, and in-game phase.
So I'm very, very motivated by the White Hat after the Black Hat today. I'm speaking with you, Jerry. So I actually designed a little game for us. Let's play the game because I think it will be fun. So I call this a gamification game because we are on laptop radio at Stanford KZSU 90.1 FM. And so this is the game. So Jerry, I'm going to say a feature, and you're going to tell me which core drive it is. So are you ready?
Okay.
All right. So Jerry, how about the farm in Farmville?
Farm in Farmville, well, that definitely emphasizes core drive 8, as I alluded to earlier. Okay, yeah. It definitely emphasizes core drive 8, because once you obtain something, some property, some land or cattle, you have to maintain it or else you lose it. To get it in the first place, the drive is to actually own it or to increase it, and that would be core drive 4, ownership and possession.
Ding! Correct. All right, let's go to, how about for a cause? I'm doing something for a cause.
That is my favorite core drive 1, epic meaning and calling. So you want the cause is the major force, the major driving force to do something outside of your realm and beyond your individual identity. You want to do it for some good, for a nonprofit organization. It's doing something that benefits society.
How about sharing photos?
Well, as we touched on earlier, touches on the core drive 3, the creativity, but the sharing part also touches on core drive 5, the social relatedness part, and that's also where if you create something and you share it and people approve, then you have social proof.
Yes, social proof.
And that would make you motivated even more.
I love social proof. Okay, let's talk about Easter eggs. What is Easter eggs?
Well, that is Easter egg can be a pleasant discovery. Sometimes it's not so pleasant, but it's discovering something by surprise. And that would be core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity.
Okay.
It's like finding a nugget in a hillside, and you didn't know it was there, and then when you find it, you're very happy.
Yeah, I mean, those are fun. I love Easter eggs because then you find the little trivias here and there. Okay, how about scarlet letter?
Well, that is essentially a symbol of shame or embarrassment. So you want to avoid that. That would be core drive 8, loss and avoidance.
All right, guys, you don't want any scarlet letter. All right, how about countdowns? I think that's an easy one. I gave you the answer.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously that is the core drive 6, scarcity and patience. Essentially, if you're running out of time, it motivates you to do something.
How about a collection of pictures?
Well, a Core Drive 4, which is ownership and possession, in collection sets. You might also be collecting things from McDonald's that would allow you to refund it or be awarded a prize or extra hamburger. And I don't think that would motivate me much, but it might motivate a lot of people.
How about points? I see points everywhere in every single game.
Well, that's definitely for Core Drive 2 development and accomplishment. That's how you determine that you're doing something good and you're essentially developing your skills, developing your position, and accomplishing something. The accomplishment is the reward of a trophy or a higher position on the leaderboard or things like that.
How about neighbors?
Obviously, Core Drive 5, social influence and relatedness.
But don't they gossip?
Yes, they do.
Okay, what is next in the game?
What is next in the game?
Yeah. Like, when you're playing a game and you were just wondering, like, what's next in the game?
Oh, well, that's probably an element of Core Drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity, because you're just curious as to what's going to happen next.
How about character limits?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How like when you're tweeting on Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
You can only write like a certain
Well, that would be
character limit. Or...
That would be scarcity and impatience, which is Core Drive 6. So it has more value because you're limited to. It used to be 140 characters on Twitter. Now it's 280.
Yeah, and I was thinking about Vine as well, like 6 seconds or so of character, and I think with scarcity there's also empowerment because you have to be creative when there's limitation.
Let me ask one of you. What about WhatsApp?
WhatsApp?
Yeah. Or how about
WhatsApp? Must be everything. That was a trick question.
Well, there's a definitely strong relationship with Core Drive 5. It's a communications platform.
Yeah, but I feel like communications or messaging is in everything that we do. I mean, which platform here, technology, survives without messaging or social influence?
How about Snapchat?
Snapchat?
I think you use that quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I like it.
And why? What
do
Core Drive is motivating you to use it?
doing social media, so I had to.
Yeah,
but
isn't there a little creativity there too?
Correct. So there's Core Drive 3, empowerment of creativity and feedback. There is Core Drive 5, social influence, because you send these silly messages to your friends, or you share it to your Facebook, to your other friends. And then Core Drive 7 is unpredictable because every single day these filters change. So you're curious and you wanted to see how you look with these filters, right? And number 8, if you don't use it, those filters might be gone. So you might want to use it.
Now you brought something up that's really interesting. You went down and you identified Core Drive 3, Core Drive 5, and Core Drive 7, also Core Drive 8. But let's look at the first 3. Those are all on the right side of the octagon. And that's why those are referred to as it's right brain core drive. Okay. And it's intrinsic. It's something that drives people to do things that's enjoyable, very enjoyable. By the way, the Core Drive 3 is also known as the golden corner because it's white hat and it's positive to the right, so it's an intrinsic core drive. The ones on the left side, the rewards that you get from those core drives are all extrinsic. They're materialistic or fundamentally external to your feelings, whereas the ones on the right are more intrinsic. That means they're more. You do it because you want to do it. It's not because you get badges or points or you're rewarded with money or possessions. You do it because it's just fun. It's very enjoyable.
So let's talk about Snapchat and Core Drive 1, 2, 4, and 6, the ones that I haven't mentioned. So Core Drive 1, epic meeting calling. Okay, I'm on Snapchat. I feel like I'm building community. I found out that one of the friend on Snapchat lives in St. Martin, which was hit by the hurricane because she couldn't log into one of our website, and I was trying to determine whether her country was excluded or not. So Core Drive 2 accomplishment. So there on Snapchat you have badges and you can add friends. I don't have a lot of friends yet, so I'm still working on accomplishment and development. But I feel like sometimes though when it's really dependent on the depth of the relationship. Like when my friends there sent me pictures of them and me, and they remember who I am, I feel like that I have accomplished or developed something. And certainly it could be a relationship, or it could be the depth of a relationship. Do you agree, Jerry?
Yes. I think those are unique, powerful factors for them.
And then number 4, ownership and possession. So I don't really count the number of friends as ownership or possession because I feel like people have free will and I'm not possessing my friend. But I like the collection of silly pictures, so I assume that counts.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Okay, so my collection of silly filters will increase hopefully by the end of next year. And then Core Drive 6, scarcity and impatience. So yeah, I feel like, if I don't use some of these filters, they would go away. And I feel that Snapchat is pretty powerful because, I hang out with my 7-year-old nephew, another one, and he would ask for my cell phone. And the only app that he want to use is not games, but Snapchat.
Let me make a general view of this, the process, the autolysis process, and the platform. It's a model. It's based on human factors. The core drives, and typically if you design something and none of these core drives are present, there's very little engagement and there's almost no motivation to do anything. But in the case of Snapchat and a few others, you actually it's not one particular core drive, it's a blend of multiple core drives, which tends to I would say it would increase the odds of success. Because if they're properly designed, having more than one core drive, essentially supplying the energy for the application or the product, you're probably going to essentially have a more engaged clientele or more engaged users, and they'll stay engaged and they'll want to be using the product or the service more.
So Dr. Jerry Fuqua, I wanted to really take it out offline to the physical world. And, when I think about gamification in the physical world, I think about hotel points or airline points. And I believe that there's 2 kinds. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Say hotel points and
airplane travel points. Yeah, so something is implicit, right? And something is explicit.
Yeah, those are explicit. In fact, that's the loyalty programs, the frequent flyer programs from Pan America and TWA back in the 70s are really good examples of gamification, though they didn't know it was gamification at that time. But basically, that's an accumulation process, and it's interesting. It's a kind of a play between the Core Drive 2, where you essentially get credit or virtual points that can be exchanged for possessions later on. So there's an interplay between Core Drive 2 and Core Drive 4.
So now that we spoke about the online world, then we spoke a little bit about hotel points and airline points, and a little bit about the companies and the gamification that they do with campaigns and all that stuff. I want to talk about the human, right? Human. How do you gamify humans? And I think about the book Games People Play when they talk about transaction analysis, and then I think about Nero's book, the 4. Isn't it the four habits or something? So what do you think about humans and our need to play games?
Well, okay. So humans have been playing games for thousands of years, literally. They may not have the concept fully defined in their minds, but they've learned how to. Games are basically fun to play. There's enjoyment, and you don't have to. You don't have to pay. You don't have to do anything in particular, just to enjoy the game. And that's the human focus side of the equation. Something, if you can stimulate the interest and the motivation, the engagement and the motivation, then whatever you're doing becomes more enjoyable, and people will want to be more involved. This is particularly true in the workplace. Like if you are motivated to go to work because there are some enjoyable activities that you love to be a part of, you actually produce a greater engagement and more loyalty. I've always heard that Zappos Shoes, which I think is in Las Vegas, it was founded in the Bay Area, but they moved it to Las Vegas, that people just can't wait to get to work because it's like a game for them. They really enjoy what they do. And the process is such that it turns mundane functions that typically permeate the workplace into enjoyable activities. And I think that this is what is really powerful about gamification. If you can turn learning or daily activities and functions into enjoyable involvement, it makes the individual more motivated.
So the book that I mentioned is called Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products by Nur El.
Mm-hmm.
And just gamification, it's mentioned in the book, and I think in the book I read it a long time ago. So it talks about Instagram and how it's changing our habits because we don't want it to. There's just a sense of lost. We don't share something at that moment. You might not gain a lot of followers. We might not have a lot of likes. And there's just really a series of technology now that is changing our analysis or our interactions with different people, and also our habits. It's forming our habits. I mean, do you agree with that, Jerry?
I think it's influential, and as such, it probably, for a large portion of the population, is definitely changing our habits.
Do you think that every company should consider implementing or core drives into their product or services?
I would definitely say that they should, because that is addressing the human side of the equation, not just the function side. When you think about it, you can have fantastic functional design in whatever you do, whether it's big products or services or whatever, but it will still be non-motivating for the individuals unless the human side is focused on that. I think, for example, I think that Apple in their product development, especially 10 years ago and forward, has been very good about addressing the human factor, the human side.
So regarding the human side, I think about interaction. In the book, Games People Play, is termed transaction analysis. So in Yukai's book, the actionable gamification book that he mentioned interaction as in 4 player types: the killers, the achievers, the socializers, and explorers. Every time things are divided by 4, I think about the movie Divergent.
Uh-huh.
And it seems to me that it's really hard to split ourselves into one category. I think a lot of people could be 4. what do you think about the four player types? The killers, socializers, achievers, and explorers.
I believe the four killer types were the ones you just gave were coined by Gabe Zickerman,
Mm-hmm.
and there are many other models where I think Nier himself has a hybrid version of the four player types, and in some situations you may not have four player types. In terms of business analysis, you may find that there are two or three player types or more than four. The interesting thing is that the core drives for each stage, for each phase, like discovery and onboarding, you will typically find there are core drives that motivate each type of player. And so that when we consult with companies, one of the first things we do is define the business metrics, have the company define the business metrics that have the highest priority. And based on that, our second step is to define the player types that the company will be dealing with. And that's where if you can define the four player types in the standard mode, that's advantageous. But the important thing is to realize that each player type is going to be motivated differently, but based on different core drives. One of our projects was to improve the health of young children in China, and having them more conscious of diets and high hygiene practices. And we identify obviously the children as the first player type, but the second player type that was part of the consideration is the teachers, the educators. They were motivated in different ways from the children. And then the third player type were the guardians or the parents of the children, which have a different set of motivations. So they're affected by different core drives in the discovery phase, in the onboarding phase, and in the scaffolding phase. So each player type is affected, might have motivation factors that are different through each phase.
I'm just thinking about our target audience and how it's important to know them in different phases of development and making games.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, like if you were looking at the potential users of a game for a nonprofit, you probably can identify at least two or three different types. I doubt if you'll have many that fall into the definition of killers, but you'll have a lot that will be socializers, a lot that might be explorers, and such.
And with human types, and I think about also HR. So once you have a job, and you work there for like 2 or 3 years, sometimes it could be really, really boring, right? So how do companies gamify to keep and retain their talent? So it's important to have different types. Because you need different aspects of people to work together to make something successful. How do we gamify HR or the people?
It's we use the approach where we define a strategy dashboard in the beginning and have to identify the business metrics, the metrics that will change based on what changes in HR, and let me clarify something here. Are we talking about redesigning HR itself, or designing programs that HR can use?
Designing programs that HR can use. I think
Okay.
when I mean HR, I'm talking about employment and just basically going to a job and just going there every day and having the same repetition.
Skill development and required training and compliance, all sorts of factors that are typically involved with every company at some level or another.
Yeah, and I feel like the really awesome companies are changing the way that people work, which is really awesome. I think we are becoming more collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
And there's more programs for personal growth. And definitely there's more games.
Well, I just thought of something based on what you just said. I was thinking about Google and remember the 20% free time practice that Google has or had?
Yeah, that sounds a lot of fun.
And when you think about it, let's say you're on a project at Google and you're developing something, and it's not the most enlightening or exciting project, but if you get the 20% free time, that gives you a tremendous motivation to get involved using Core Drive 3 creativity. And that really stimulates a lot of people, and they want to, stay at Google.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, if there's a lab for me to play with at a company, I can like blow up sulfur. And use a lot of wires and poke people's brain with these fiber optics.
Well, one of the things that's powerful about Core Drive 3 is that it often leads to unique solutions that are very difficult to obtain otherwise. And sometimes, like in the case of Google, it results in the parties leaving with an idea that they create in free time, and they start a new company. And sometimes they're very successful.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Tilt Brush. I think it was not intended that way for VR. But then it just happened that there's that glow, and then now we have like a brush to make virtual environments.
Yeah, well, I just had a flashback about the history of Silicon Valley and how Shockley Semiconductor gave birth to an industry, and yet the 7 key engineers left to form what was the company? Fairchild. And then some of their team left later on to form Intel. It's interesting how sometimes it can be beneficial to, or not beneficial to the original company. The core drives actually might drive your employees away, but it's beneficial in creating a whole new company, a whole new vitality.
So Jerry, I'm very interested in the future, and not just the future of gamification, which means the future of human and the psychology and the way that we interact and socialize with each other, but also the future of gamification and how it impacts the newer technology like the AI, like Bitcoin, virtual money, VR, AR, so. I know that we're speaking about something that we consider and try to be more engaging to people. What are some of your predictions?
Wow. Well, I have a couple of things, but because they come from the Defense Department, I can't really tell you about them.
Okay.
But in AR, VR, I used to work in telerobotics, and essentially think of it as controlling a robot in one location with an exoskeleton or a high-tech suit that you wear at another location. So you can based on how you control the mannerisms of the exoskeleton, you can create a robot that will go into a very dangerous situation. But this could be used in other applications, like for medical applications. I actually see this kind of thing being gamified in a way that people, in the entertainment industry, might actually want to be a part of a virtual concept and be essentially create not only a virtual reality in terms of what you see in the display or on a computer, but actually having the very rich, high-fidelity feedback of senses on the hands and the body, and interacting with others in a group, maybe in a war game or something, a fantasy, and yet at the same time learning from it.
So isn't that like a world within a world, like gamification within gamification, right?
Yeah, but it's not just visual; it's total sensory, and this could be used for training, for training students to drive very complex vehicles or fly, or interacting. Maybe self-defense training or something without hurting the person. You hurt the robot instead.
Well, I just think it's more fun to do self-defense and it's jiu-jitsu in person. I play the archery game at GDC every year, I say, and it feels very different from playing a virtual reality game versus a real thing. And I always usually prefer the real thing because the your weapons are a little bit heavier, and you could kind of use your. I mean, I feel like you're using your whole body, and I think VR is not there yet, and I can't wait for AR VR to be there.
Yeah, the fidelity level is still not high enough so that you become totally immersed and you feel natural. You feel like you're in a completely different world or a different setting. I might want to say also, again, prompting Core Drive 3 creativity and feedback, that it turns out to be a very powerful core drive when it comes to solving very, very difficult problems. For instance, the University of Washington's Fold-It project, where they essentially are trying to find solutions for very difficult medical problems involving proteins and folding proteins. The fact that experts have been working with supercomputers and trying to solve folding problems for many years, 10 years or more, and yet when they gamified it, they were the people that participated could actually came to solutions within a week or two. And the same thing can be said for other very difficult problems. So this is a perfect area for applying gamification. Just offer a challenge to people and sometimes it might be through virtual reality.
Yeah, or AI as well. I mean, now with Alexa and Siri and a number of AIs, we get feedback immediately, right? Core Drive number 3. And we can interact with machines. So I think Core Drive 5 is very important because I feel like the generation of the internet, and it has changed the way that we interact with each other because people share a lot of things online, and of course on the back end there's that data. But I think with more senses, because everything is digitalized, right? You can touch and feel now. You have instant feedback now. Knowledge, you can get knowledge anywhere. And there's more and more messaging apps. So I think we become very dependent on each other in a way.
You bring up an interesting point that made me think of another point, and that is like the development of the internet. Everybody accepts the fact that the development of the internet made information more accessible. But at the same time, it was creating the first generation or the first level of social interactive with email and FTPs exchanging ideas with each other. In fact, that was the original purpose of the internet, was to allow researchers to collaborate and exchange ideas at the different government laboratories and the different universities around the country.
Yeah, like I still remember at some point in time I was writing voice over IP for Cisco systems manuals, and I think a lot of these messenger programs are not there yet, and the quality isn't that great. So now, when we have meetings, we're in Zoom now, and we can see each other, and the quality is a lot better. So it has changed for the better, in a way, and it will become more so.
I agree. And every generation of technology is going to improve matters so that you feel the proximity of the people you're interacting with, even though they may be separated by large distances.
There's one fear, and I guess I'm going to talk about Core Drive 8 a little bit. And my fear on gamification is that the wealthy are going to build and build, and with AI, only certain people could use and design technology. what happened to the people who are poor, who have no access to the technology? They seems to be the people that we're basically targeting to use, but yet, what are going to happen to their livelihood as a result of all these drives that companies use?
Well, there are new things on the horizon. There are new companies that are trying to access the, I guess we would call the masses, the people that don't have as much access. I just saw a presentation a few weeks ago at Stanford where a startup company actually in New Zealand, is their goal is to produce a constellation, a satellite constellation. That is a series of satellites that could be as many as 100 that collaborate with each other in low Earth orbits in order to access Internet of Things devices in areas where there's very little access physically, in remote areas of Africa or in Asia even. And this is going to be actually very, very cheap and economical to use, and it will possibly give people in remote rural areas a elementary form of mobile capability of cellular service using satellites instead of normal cell systems.
That would be awesome.
So that I think whenever there is a potential problem to make something to overcome the barriers or the produce the economies that will allow you to overcome barriers, social barriers as well as economic barriers, I think there will be innovative companies that will supply solutions in the future.
So since we're talking about gamification, I wanted to challenge each one of you to really think about what is your own core drive, like what motivates you, whether it's white hat or black hat, or whether you're wanted to do something for a good cause, because you believe in some mission, or you just wanted to buy things and a lot of them, or you're just afraid that you'll miss out on something. What is really your core drives? For yourself. You don't have to tell anyone, but just kind of think about it. And with that, I just wanted to thank Jerry for being here today.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I enjoyed it.